My friends are used to seeing me doing a disappearing act behind the camera because when you're in this kind of ministry, you do it all. I'm a camera person, light person, interviewer, teacher, evangelist. But I'd like to say that while I was in the corridor here of the Templo Calvario in Santana, I ran into an old friend who married an even older friend, or a friend from a longer period of time. And Steve is a missionary to Spain. I guess we can go back and forth with this.
Right.
I think maybe we should give. See, we haven't even had time to plan this. It's just I was supposed to be over resting, and I ran into him, and we take advantage, not in the worldly sense of taking advantage of somebody, but when we have an opportunity to talk to some of our viewers. And I think that probably the churches that might be less aware of what's happening now in Spain, strange as this might seem, maybe the English-speaking churches. Do you think so?
Very much so.
Okay, let's do most of this interview. By the way, how much time do you have for me?
10 minutes.
Okay, so that gives us, okay, fine. Okay, you met and married a very dear girl that I met when she was in her late teens and member of a family that was very prominent in their town. And I'm sure glad she met you.
So am I.
When I like somebody, I like them to, I like to know that they have a good marriage, and especially if they're in the Lord's work. You've been how many terms in Spain?
This is our second term. We've been there 6.5 years.
Now, for some of our viewers, you are appointed and approved. I was approved, but I didn't have a budget approved. My budget wasn't approved. Paid my own way with about $100 a month or something. So, in other words, you, and this may be or may not be a problem for you, but some of our lay people don't know why missionaries don't hurry up and get back on the field. And I can tell you that a missionary has a budget, and not only does a missionary in the Assemblies of God have a budget, but there's a projection. If he's going on the field for 4 years, there's a projection of what the economy will do in 4 years. And they want you taken care of. They don't want to have to lift you from a helicopter out of there and bring you back home to have to look for a job. And one thing I'm interviewing you when I'm talking. Isn't this great? One thing that has always seemed strange to me, I don't know whether you've had this experience or not. I was an approved missionary in a country where I had to become, it wasn't possible to keep going back as a tourist, and so I became legally a resident. And I had to come back in a year. Well, as it happened, I had only planned to stay a year anyway. But I would have to have come back within a year. Now, I was given, only 365 days to come back. But if in the United States, this would have happened to an appointed missionary, and he had not had his approved budget, plus his transportation over there, and all of that, he couldn't go back.
No, he loses them.
Right. And then what I don't think many people realize, it's not cheap to get this.
No.
I'm probably the only one, just because it bothered me that a Spanish-speaking intelligent person would have to get a lawyer to do this. So I did it all on my own just to prove it could be done. But tell us some of your experiences of getting appointment, also your experiences over there, and as much as you can tell me in 12 and a half minutes.
Barbara, it's I'd like to say this, that the program in Springfield is, I like the design, I like the program, and I think it's a fantastic program.
It is.
They do try to foresee as many things as possible and try to help the missionary get things situated, prepared, so that when he gets to the field, he can function, he can minister without having this other thing added
Right.
to it, because you're going to have enough problems as it is.
That's right.
However, in the last 5 or 6 years, the inflation in America and in Europe and around
Our
the world.
problem here has spread
Around the
around the
world,
world
yeah,
because everything was looked at by comparison to the American dollar.
Right.
Now,
So even though they've projected the increases in living costs, it's been far beyond that. And so the missionaries around the world are suffering from it. I'd like to say this, that if the churches that have pledged to give a missionary a certain amount, if they would at this time, and I think Springfield is doing this, they're communicating with the church to do this.
Yeah.
And maybe we can say something about this here.
sure. I know that so many people are not, aware of it. I speak of. Well, as it often happens, we had a little technical difficulty. We're hooked all up to one line, but apparently, as they're closing the church down for the evening, somebody pulled a switch on it. So we're back, no problem.
Barbara, we were talking about the budget and how its projection. I like to say this, a $10 pledge, a $5 pledge, even a $20, $25 pledge is no longer the pledge that it was, say, 3 years ago.
Right.
Because it's worth now, what was 20 is probably worth 5. And just to show you a little bit how this thing is going, if someone sends us a $20 check, which they don't do, but if we get a $20 check that we're going to cash over there, you pay $8 to cash that check.
That's right.
So this shows you a little bit of where we're going.
Do you keep an account in the States and then transfer funds in?
Yes.
That's what I
But
did.
what we do is Springfield will send our check to our bank, and then we have a checking account, or we have a checkbook with us over there, and we just write checks over there because we don't want money being sent overseas.
Right.
The work in Spain, Barbara, has really opened up. The government now, for the first time ever in that country, has given us liberty and freedom to work like we never even dreamed it would be possible. Now, how long this is going to last, we don't know. Just not even a year ago, we had the attempted coup that they tried to take over the government. Fellow came in there into the Senate with the firing arms, tried to take over the government. If that would have happened, what that would have done to our work, we're not sure. But we know one thing, that with the present government, we are enjoying freedom like never before. We are able to get on the radio. We can go to the park and preach. We can go to the street and give tracts. We can talk. We can visit homes. It's just freedom that we never knew of before. And we're taking advantages of as much of this liberty as possible. I say we can go on the radio. We can write an ad for the newspaper.
Yeah.
We can do all of this
If you have the money.
if we have the finances.
But you can do it.
But we can do it now. In the past, I had applied for a radio program. I had put ads in the paper, and they would take my money, and then I'd go back, buy the paper, no article. So then you have to go back and fight with them to get your money back. But now,
When you should be preaching
yeah,
gospel.
when we should
and
be preaching
people
gospel.
don't. I know people. You've got to be there in
Yes.
order to understand it.
Right.
How much of the missionary's
Administrative work.
time is taken up with that? I even know missionaries who pay people to stand in line.
Yes.
Because you
Yes.
stand in line 3 hours to get a stamp. Then you go across town and stand in line 5 hours to get somebody's signature.
Right. Then you come back the following day because the other office won't take you that day.
Yeah.
Only on certain days of the week. We've done that. But we're really excited about the things happening in Spain. And all of our work, whatever a missionary does in whatever mission he's working in, from the Assemblies of God, he works from his own budget in Springfield. This is so important that the people understand this. Springfield does not have a general fund for missionaries.
That's right. They have a fund for you.
They have a fund for Steve Martinez.
That's right.
And Steve Martinez works from that fund. I am working now. I'll tell you what happened, Mike. We went to Spain and we were still working. We were assigned to work with the Bible school. I raised $10,000 for my work in Spain before I left. When I got to Spain, as a faculty member of our Bible school in Spain, I then transferred $10,000 from my account to the Bible school because it was under construction. We needed the money. Okay. Now, 2 years later, I have the work has shifted, and we see a definite need that didn't exist before. Now we have been asked to work in evangelism.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have left the Bible school, and we are working in evangelism. We're holding campaigns, and we're trying to pioneer works where there are no works, and we're helping missionaries do this. So now we're faced with the fact that we drained our account to help the Bible school, which was our ministry for 2 years. But now, for this new ministry that we're working with now, we're hurting now because of our financial setup, and we have to believe God now that He will give us the financing to hold these different revivals. Because when we go visit a town, say where we're going to have a 2-week campaign, all right, in order to go in there and put an ad in the paper, or distribute literature, or whatever publicity we want to do. We want to print, say, 10,000 leaflets. All that money to do these different things, to prepare for the revival, comes out of our account. Now, if we don't have the money in our account, we can't print up those invitations. We can't go to the newspaper and say, hey, put this ad in the paper so that people know that there's going to be preaching and praying for the sick.
It has to be paid for up front.
You have to pay for it before it's done. So we're faced with the problem of going to a place and not being able to publicize or to publish that we're there. So we just can't accomplish as much.
Another thing that I think a lot of Americans don't realize, for example, if I felt that I wanted to go to Texas to hold a campaign, and I believed God that when I got to Texas there would be enough money to pay the bills, I would go on my little credit card all the way there. And that, I know, you cannot do. It's got to be upfront.
Yes. Springfield has even, because of the IRS, we used to be able to operate in the red. And as long as I could pay for the expenses while I was spending them, then I would send the receipts into Springfield, and they would process them, and they'd go through my account. If there was no money there, they'd still go into the account, and then they'd go on hold. Then when the money came into my account, they would reimburse me. But now they can only do that for a 6-month period. So we can no longer.
There is an emergency fund. How many missionaries are there in your field? Because I know about the field of the fellowship.
Spain has about 12 Assembly of God missionaries.
How often do you get together for your field fellowship?
We get together at least twice a year.
You know, some places they get together once a month. It depends how far away you are. And when I was in El Salvador, they did. And that can make a difference too, because to get contact, you know, that you're kind of isolated. We're doing one segment. If I can get the pastors together in time, telling who pastors the pastor, you know, ¿quién pastor el pastor? Now, who pastors the missionary? You know, this is one of the things. I've gone through things on other fields, and sure, I met people. They were my brothers in the Lord. We were dear friends. I loved them. I would have trusted them with my life. But sometimes it takes a matter of years to build up this confidence that you say, oh, Barbara, you don't know what I'm going through. And there's a whole lot that our televidentes or our viewers don't know. Most of what our viewers know is when they go to a WM bi-monthly meeting, and he tells a little bit about his work, and then the need for a washing machine or the need for a printing press, and another thing about sending money. Our dear ladies, they love to sew, but getting, you know, if they sew something with a value of $10, and then they put postage on it of $5, then it gets there. Most people think it goes to your house.
No.
I know that.
I have to pay to get that thing out of there.
And
sometimes.
And your Christmas presents come in June.
It's not. I can't recommend that they send any articles, because it's too hard to get them articles.
That's right.
and half of the time, by the time we get them out, you know, I don't know if it would have been better had they sent the money for it maybe instead of
you know,
I
I
have to
just,
pay more than what it's worth.
right, I just got this idea for all you ladies that like to sew and make things for missions. Uh, what would be most helpful, if this is a desire you have in your heart, do it, sell it at a sale
Yes.
or at a craft sale or something, then send the money to Springfield to the account of Steve Martinez, Spain. I don't know if you want to give the number. No,
Steve Martinez, Spain will get it there.
right, and this is the way it is. I mean, you know, we want to talk about the good old days, but the good old days, I would have been under a tree. I would have had a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Be looking around for a plug. The church would be on the other side of the tracks. And I'm glad we're not in the good old days. There were some very good things, you know, but that was then. And this is now. And many of our people don't realize this. And I just saw him in the hall, and I said, hey, I'm supposed to be doing something else, but can I take a little bit of your time?
Let me say this, Barb. I mentioned starting churches.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say this to the viewers, that when we talk about starting a mission or starting a church, it's hard to visualize going to a place where there is no existing church at all. When you go into an area, if you have to, if you need a pail of water, you have to go buy the pail because there's no one there that can loan it to you. You have to go buy the water and bring it. If you need to move, whatever you have to move, you have to go rent a truck. There's nobody around that has a truck. You know, I was used to being here in the States where if you need a pickup, you know, you have all kinds of people in the church.
Who in the church has got a pickup?
Yeah. If you're going to do something, you know, you get all this help. Sometimes you have two sections get together and have a joint. Well, I was just in Sacramento, and they talked about Stockton and Sacramento having a joint rally, you know. Oh, this is beautiful, you know. But we're in a place where there is not even an existing church, much less a joint, you know, fellowship. So pray that God will give us, you know, some of the goodies that you have here. And I dream, and I hope to see in Spain the day when we can have rallies and we can have, you know, this fellowship between churches. But right now we're in the planning stage, and I just thank God that the planning stage is at the edge where we're seeing the fruit now of our work. Because for many years we would go hold a revival, you know, you put your tent up and preach and preach and preach, and you'd have, you know, 30, 40, 50 kids, children. Thank God for the children. But an adult, you know, it was maybe the third week before you see an adult come in. But now this thing has really accelerated. And now we put up a tent or we rent a building or go in a new area. And I'd say the second or third night you have adults in that you can preach to and reach. So praise God. And we've had some good help from the States that has been in Spain to help us. We've had Juan Romero, we've had Ruben Mojardo, we've had Brother Roberto Fierro.
You've had the best.
Yes, we have.
Really have.
And they have done a tremendous job. We had Johnny Gomez Trio. They prepared a special cassette in Spanish, sang nothing but Spanish, spoken Spanish, and it was terrific. That's a great time. So we would welcome any help that we could get. The thing is that when you go over there, you have to be prepared to go it all the way. And by that I mean you have to be prepared to finance your trip.
You're committing
finance your work.
4 years. It's not like saying, look at my calendar, what do I have this month? You're committing 4 years, in which time your kids may get sick, the government will change.
Yeah.
Who was your friend today? You're put on standby.
Right.
Pack one suitcase. We'll give you 12 hours. And the country, one of the countries, I lived, I loved, I left part of my soul there, you know, and now the missionaries are on standby.
Yes.
And I might never be able to go there again.
We saw this You know, we no longer have missionaries, say, in Angola and in Mozambique, in Africa. I taught last year in Portugal for 4 months. The last semester I taught in Portugal at a Bible school there. And we had students from Mozambique and Angola. But we can, as Americans, we can no longer go into those countries. Thank God for the Bible school in Portugal.
I got into Cuba, but I went in with 52 Mexicans. We
Okay,
left Mexico
okay.
and we went in, and I smiled, and
All right. That's about the only way you get
but I
into
had to
Angola.
travel all day long as a tourist and wear myself
Yeah.
out in order to go to the church service and then not preach from the platform, but give a 45-minute testimony from where I was sitting or from behind the piano.
When did you go?
About 2.5 years ago.
Beautiful, beautiful.
But I guess
Yeah.
you don't know that I wear this little thing. This is for pain. And it's connected to 8 electrodes. But the ones that I had when I went to Cuba were each about the size of a king-size cigarette, and I had 2 of them.
Oh,
And I was trying to get to the main church one Sunday morning to Sunday school. And, you know, when communist comes in and God goes out, you can't believe even the change in your everyday life.
That's right, that's right.
My roommate happened to be the widow of the former general superintendent in Mexico, Brother Orozco.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know how I ever kept up with that little old lady, but we tried to take a cab to the church, and they were practicing for their January 1st when they were going to parade the tanks and the cannons and the marches, and we got left off like about 8 blocks behind, and at that time I had difficulty walking. And this one now I can wear in different parts of my clothing, but the others, they were always hanging right here. And well, one of them could be a recorder and the other could be a camera. And I got, you know, fortunately, but we were going in a cab there, and the guy was trying to get it as close as possible. And she did a no-no, but she said, it's about time to celebrate Christmas. And he said, no.